done with COVID than myself, for all of you. It's not done with us, but we continue to be smart, push forward vaccinations. We're going to drive those curves, and as they are, and we're in the right trajectory with the amount of velocity that we need. So what's happening and changing on May 29th? Well, a lot. And I know you have questions. You have some like, is this really happening? Can I do this? So all restrictions in the city of Somerville will be completely aligned with the state and the CDC and will be lifted on May 29th. So less than 48 hours from now. So what's that mean? Let's go forward. Next slide. Rachel, yeah, thank you. So at that point, businesses can operate at 100% capacity. 100% capacity. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. We never thought we'd hear it in this long, grueling year. And these are all business categories. There's some of them bulleted out, and you can follow the link that's outlined here for the CDC Workplace and Business Guidance. So all business categories can operate under that guidance at 100% capacity. Next slide, please. Events and gatherings, whether they're inside or outside. Right. Again, the limits will be, the gathering limits will be lifted. The music will be allowed with no COVID limitations to it. So you can sing out loud, play out loud. And public event permit requirements return to what they are, pre-pandemic standards. So you still have to go get a permit. Good news, remember I mentioned a couple months ago, as we were inching towards this, I said, look, at this time last year, we canceled everything for the whole calendar year, so we're not going to do that. Timing might be recalibrated because many of you have asked, what about the great events that really made Somerville stand out in terms of celebrating our civic strength and pride and history and diversity, creative and connected characteristics. So what's abnormal about Somerville, and also supported our business community. They're all coming back, folks. Some of them might be slightly different given the time, but they're all starting to come back. Vaccinations is key to make this happen. Next slide, please. So when will folks be required to wear a mask? If you've been following the news, it's been pretty straightforward. So on all these public places, public and private transportations, whether it's an MBTA bus, an Uber, a Lyft, or your typical forms of mobility, you have to wear a mask regardless whether you're vaccinated or not. Again, these guidelines are posted publicly, but I'll emphasize them here. Healthcare facilities, sites that host vulnerable populations like congregate care or nursing homes and so forth, and in all early childhood and K-12 education facilities. There is a statewide face covering advisory that starts May 29th as well, but that'll be, again, all aligned locally and here in the state of Massachusetts with the CDC, and that's pretty straightforward. In terms of like Somerville City Hall and so forth, we'll be putting forth, we're like a business as well in terms of how do we, take the safest measure and affirm and declare what is safe enough for people coming in. There'll be probably, we're looking at those guidelines like many of you are, with whether to require masks anyhow or how to affirm that, and based on our business operation and oversight capability, but we're following the same guidance virtually. In terms of our facilities, we'll be releasing that in the very near future. Next slide, please. So some frequently asked questions we're already hearing in advance. Can a business limit capacity or require masks still? The answer is yes. Now, I'm not going to attempt to give you legal advice, nor is anyone from the city of Somerville. But you can limit your capacity if you choose. That is your choice. We are not going to require that any longer at this point. Can an individual business set a mask mandate for staff and or patrons if they choose? Yes, unless you are unionized and yes, in collective bargaining, we submit you can. Check that. That is your decision. We are going through the same questions and more than likely will institute those measures. Now, I have businesses I frequent, whether it's a gym or somewhere else or salon in here, and I've heard that some are going to continue to do that because we know we got to build up consumer confidence. So whatever we do, we need to be smart and make sure people, I know we're trying to erase muscle memory and change culture. Even myself, I'm fully vaccinated. How do we get people confident that these things are going to work? So that is your call. We went through this thoroughly as an administration and incident command team and what we should require, what we should oversee. We just did not think we could do that well. We've done a lot and sacrificed a lot, so we're asking you all to be smart. Post what you're required to post and think about carefully what you can oversee and can proclaim as safe or not that you know for certain in your establishment. But you can limit and do these things if you choose to continue to do so. We are not going to require you to do that at this point. Next slide, please. How about outdoor dining? This is an important one of all the restaurants. We've heard from you. I want to tell you some of the conversations I've had between myself and Baker's administration and other municipal leaders. So while the 6-foot distance between tables is being lifted, businesses will need to get new layouts approved before you expand capacity. I repeat that. Before you expand your capacity, you need to get new layouts approved via ISD. We'll answer those questions and move forward. So the governor's state of emergency, just to clarify, ends on June 15th. It does not end with these new guidelines on June 15th. The question we've had is, what about the outdoor licensing, which has been very effective in making sure our restaurants continue to be stable and move forward? I'm advocating with other municipal officials that could be put into permanent form in the right circumstances. That's not there yet, at least as long as possible. As I've stated to the administration, we don't have full consumer confidence yet in restaurants, even though some of us lost 9. That's compared to 2 are really on the way out before COVID, and that's very small, maybe about 4% if my math's correct, out of all the restaurants compared to the rest of the state and the country. That doesn't mean that industry, amongst others, is not strained. So the more we can keep these pieces in place, it should be permanent. They should have a process for evaluating that, at least so we can build more momentum that carries through COVID to all your customers and our consumers and our people in the community have full confidence they'll back inside. They should be in place. So again, the state of emergency ends on the 15th, not the same as the other restrictions. Outdoor dining licenses in emergency are extended until Sunday, August 15th at this time. But again, we know this conversation, and I myself with other municipal and state leaders are advocating to extend it further. Even in the interim, if there's a specific date under the governor's proposed to the end of November, we'd like to see it permanent, but for now, as far as we can push it. I'm sure we have many more conversations about that. Next slide, please. So there are some additional issues to consider regarding alcohol licenses. The requirement to order food, by the way, with the drink will be lifted on May 29th. So, however, alcohol served to go or by delivery will not be allowed after June 15th. So let's make sure you pay close attention to those dates. The requirement you have to order food with the drink as of May 29th will be no longer in effect yet. However, and again, these are state rules, folks, by the way. The ability to order to go is only through the 15th or by delivery. So please pay attention to that because we will enforce those rules. There's confusion. We're here to answer those questions, and we'll do our best to remind folks of those dates. Next slide, please. We understand fully and aware that we're not out of the woods yet. We fared much better than other communities. I submit that all our work together, working with all of you to be creative, to understand how we can support businesses, even when the answers we gave you were, again, the best of the worst ones. But the direct financial relief, I want to thank the City Council for $7 million, along with the waiving of all permits and fees for a year, which, as you know, we'll be doing it again. Based on the data we're seeing was impactful. And we want to hear more from you as we go forward. There is still money, business relief. If you did not take advantage of it in round 3, you can send the communication. We'll put the email address up a way to inquire. And we are tracking the additional funding programs to support business recovery. We are not done. I and some administration are done to working with you to understand the opportunities for more direct financial relief. We want to be smart about it because there is a tremendous amount of money coming from ARPA to municipalities in the state and also through other business programs. So we want to be targeted and leverage with a lens of equity on where that should happen. We're going to be coming back to you all in your different industries, whether you're retail or restaurant and lifestyle, entertainment, what the stress points are. That's data we're going to need. So whether it's your different sector organizations that lobby the state and work with municipalities, or here locally to understand, there are gaps. As best we did, we picked numbers based on the information we had at hand, trying to figure it out on our own. And we need to understand what we need to do more or how we can be more targeted, have the greatest impact. The money's not going to be here forever, but how can we leverage that in the interim against other funds to make sure that all our businesses and new ones that want to open, we recapture the wins and that trajectory and that velocity we had against our sales before COVID. And we can do this. So again, we're not done that, and that's on our radar screen. That's my last slide. So this was pretty straightforward. We know we have questions. Yes, we meant it about the 100% capacity, that we'll all be on the same page with that guideline. We did so to be consistent as we have been for the last 14 plus months with the data, with the science, and our approach of being deliberate, methodical, and diligent, but making sure that we're not going to trade human life for anything. And still, we've lost 86 people. I'm reminded of that number sticks with me because I got the phone calls every time, as well as Doug Price and others. But thank you for what you've done so far. We got a ways to go, but we can see around the corner, actually standing right there in clear sight. So we're going to try to answer as many questions you have now. Feel free to follow up, to formulate them now, and we're going to be coming back to you about some of the things we mentioned to you. So I want to stop there and try to keep this as direct and as clear as possible. So Kristen, you'll facilitate the Q&A.
Thank you. So again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And we do ask, if you have specific questions about your business, please reach out to us directly. And we're going to use this space for questions that are applicable to everyone. And before we get to questions, I'd like to ask any other staff that has not yet introduced themselves, would you mind turning on your camera so that the audience can know who's here and who's available to answer the questions that come up?
Hello, everybody. Nick Antanovica, Director of Inspectional Services.
Laurie Batnick, Secretary to the Licensing Section.
Okay, thank you. So, oh, sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, Daniela Carrillo, Economic Development Assistant.
All right, I think we've caught everybody. So a couple of questions have come in over email that I want to go over first. So, and they're kind of a similar theme. Does this lifting of requirements really mean that we can have no partitions, real menus, late night service, closing at our regular permitted hours? And so, yes, all COVID, I know it's hard to believe, and I think it has happened so fast. We all kind of like have to take a breath on this, but really all the COVID restrictions are lifted. And so, but that doesn't mean, as the mayor was saying, if you still feel like you're not ready to have real menus, or you still feel like the partitions are what's best for your business, and you, please keep those things up. We're not saying you have to take anything down, but there are no longer COVID specific requirements. That does not mean that there are no requirements. And so, you know, the normal things that you would do and require permits for and things like that around events and other things, you still need to follow those processes. But I don't know if Nick or Lori, you want to add anything from either the perspective of ISD or the Licensing Commission.
This is Laurie Batnick, Secretary to Licensing Commission. I would like to say that the rules and regulations of the Somerville Licensing Commission are still in effect. So if you have any questions on that, please give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions.
And I'd just like to clear up any confusion that may happen regarding the outdoor seating and the layouts. So all the COVID restrictions are gone, so we're not worried about the spacing. We're not looking at the 6-foot distances, but all the other items that were regulated by that are still in place. So the number of tables and seats that are out there are part of the approval through the Licensing Commission. Also, any of the ADA requirements that were put in still need to be put in place. So again, it's only the COVID restrictions. We're not looking at the spacing of the partitions, but we still have to go along with what the approved number of tables and chairs and how that setup is. Again,
if I could add, that's what I tried again. If I didn't stress it, any intent to adjust that needs to get approval of the ISD and the necessary regulatory and approval process. So all these rules that existed before COVID, folks, they don't go away. They're still there. So they're there for a reason.
There are several questions about the requirement to submit a new layout if you want to expand your outdoor dining. So Lori and Nick, can you speak to that and what that process is and where it applies? Does it also apply to indoor seating? Is it just outdoors? If you could share some more information with the group, that'd be appreciated.
So expanding any type of seating would require an adjustment to your approved plans, but that is done through building code, health code, and the licensing commission. Those are all previous requirements. If you were looking to expand your capacity inside, the building code and the restaurant code would require you to submit an updated plan showing the revised seating and capacity to know that you meet those requirements. So again, these are, yes, you would need to submit something, but this is the regular course of business that would have been done prior to COVID anyways.
Okay. And then Mayor, I think this is a question for you. If there's an increase in the percentage of positive cases, are we eyeing something that would trigger the return of restrictions for restaurants?
I don't know that answer. I'm going to tell you the way we've always done. We'll tell you what I know. We'll tell you what we know, what we don't know, and we'll tell you no if it's a no. You know, if something, the blank hits the fan, then it'll be a lot more than restaurants, but that way. Now, this is important, folks, in terms of the theme of this question. COVID's going to be with us. They expect a slight uptick in the fall, which is why the race, and thank you, those who put up vaccinated signs and help with that messaging has really helped to combat vaccine hesitancy. It's really important. We need the model, and I was doing this yesterday at a press event where we announced at a groundbreaking at Billboard with everyone present that, hey, we're all vaccinated. Took off our masks. This is what happens when we do that. So the best way to build up the confidence of your customers and consumers is to promote and live those CDC guidelines. I can't predict the future. I hope we're not in that position. Is it possible? Sure. If there's an outbreak, I want to caution everyone. We are going to follow these guidelines, but if we find there's abuse and an outbreak in any particular sector of our economy, we will take action locally on that, okay? Or overall, but I submit, if it really gets that broad, it'll be a lot more than restaurants. It'll be across the board. I hope we're not there. The vaccines work. So let's be smart as we move forward and be thoughtful. Before you open up the floodgates, just be prepared for all that. Because if we do this wrong, it's not just stumble anywhere and there's an outbreak, we're going to lose a lot of confidence from folks in their local government, state, and national, but locally in their businesses. So we got to remember, we got to keep people safe.
Another question has come in. When will city staff be back in the office? Do you want to update the folks?
We don't know that yet. We are working on it. Like you all in your businesses are asking yourself, should we mandate masks or not? We're going through that. You'll see us mandate many things. More like we haven't come to a decision. You know, we will be mandating things with employees who are vaccinated, we're not vaccinated. We're working through that. We are moving on a plan that we'll announce in the near future about, you know, opening up City Hall parts of it. I submit you do not expect to walk in any office anytime you want, but, you know, we're going to manage the flow of people. We're going to make sure people follow the guidelines, but open up the sort of frontal facing services in our buildings. So stay tuned. We'll announce that as well. We understand that's important for many reasons, for the public, you know, local economy, for us as well. I haven't seen 90+% of the staff. It's only been over a year. Like you, we want to be around each other and be smart. So we're figuring out the same questions you have, how to do it here, and we're getting close.
Thank you. And so the Licensing Commission's chair, Joe Lynch, is with us today, and I know he wanted to make a statement for the previous question. So Commissioner Lynch.
Afternoon, everybody. Mayor, how you doing? So, Mayor, if you give me 1 second, if I can just extend my thanks to you and your staff, Doug Kress, and Director Antanavica, Director Galagani, all the folks that have assisted our licensees since March of 2020. I am proud to report to you and to the City Council that there have been no violations in our industry that have risen to a hearing in front of either this commission or the ABCC. And I think all of our licensees deserve the credit and the praise that we can give them for persevering. So we could not have done it on the licensing commission without you and your staff giving us guidance. One thing I would just ask, if there are any questions, we could not have done it without Lori Batzik and John Long in the City Clerk's Office. One thing I would ask is if you have particular questions about anything to do with your licenses and the rules and regs for outdoor dining or indoor dining on the public way or on your private patios, please don't hesitate to call us. One thing I would want to emphasize, though, the Somerville Licensing Commission rules and regs do require that food be served when alcohol is being served. So what was read today is the state guidance that you do not need to have food available. City guidance is rules, or that you do need to have a menu available. That is the only thing I can think of, Mayor. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support for the industry, the Chamber of Commerce, the restaurateurs, and most of all, the patrons that stuck with our restaurant industry. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, Joe, and actually, thank you for calling out in a good way, Laurie and John, and really administrative support staff folks, all of you out there. They're the ones who make sure all your requests, all your applications are facilitated as effectively and efficiently as possible, as quickly as possible. And they remind us as we make decisions where we need to align what we're doing and what we might be, how to inform you better. So thank you for that, Joe. It's unique and really not a lot of municipalities, all the boards, authorities on the administrative and authoritative and regulatory level working in collaboration with the public and the local government, all in one unit. So appreciate that.
Commissioner Lynch, some questions are coming in about that last statement about when food needs served with alcohol. So there's a question, does that only apply for outdoors? And then there's another question. Yeah, I think it's pretty much, is that rule only for outdoors? And then are you allowed to do it if you have a permit, say for a beer garden? If it's in your permit, can you serve alcohol without food?
Thank you, Kristen. The nuances of when food has to be served and when you can have a beer garden are wide. So I would ask that applicant to contact Lori directly. As you know, we have one-day licenses that will begin to be reissued. Requirements for food are different. They are different for breweries. They are different right across the board. The question, I think, is for anyone who now has a temporary outdoor seating area on the public way or a private patio, do we need to have food available when they are ordering alcohol? The question is yes.
Yeah. And if I may add to that, Joe, thanks for the clarification. My statement was loose. So, right, remember those amenities were done to help the food service restaurant industry. So as Joe Lynch, Commissioner Lynch said, just check back in because your requirements for your license are always in place. The COVID, amenities or restrictions apply to COVID. So you can't just sit at those COVID tables on the street, those tables to expand on the public realm and just have a drink. In many cases, I remember when we launched along with the Chamber and the business community, the beer and wine license and so forth, we had local restrictions that remain in place. If you're going to a restaurant, you sit at a table, you need to order food. Now, in terms of bar service, that's different. But the best way to do this, Commissioner Lynch mentioned, just check in. We'll answer those questions.
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple more questions in the question box, and then we'll go to the couple questions of folks who are raising their hands. So we haven't forgotten you guys. So this is a question for economic development staff. What are other restaurants and indoor activity places doing as far as masks go? That there's an interest in hearing what other businesses are doing. I know the webinar format doesn't really lend itself to having a discussion across participants, but is there another opportunity where businesses can share what they're doing and learn best practices?
Daniela, do you want to jump in here and see what you've been hearing from folks?
Yeah, actually I heard this morning from the Union Square Main Street's business meeting. Some of the businesses, I believe that they're going to be lifting. It depends on the business. For example, some businesses don't feel comfortable just as the people will still have to wear masks because they don't feel comfortable for their clients or for the service they offer. But others are just going to lift their mask request. I don't know if you will want to invite Jessica Eshelman. She was the organizer this morning, and she's been talking to these businesses more about what they're going to be doing with their mask restrictions.
Thank you. And sorry, was I interrupting someone? All right, good. So a question for Doug or Nick. Choke training certifications were not available. There wasn't in-person training available. And so some folks may have had those certifications expired, and they're waiting for in-person training to be offered again for those trainings. Is there going to be any lenience in that circumstance?
That actually would be a question for Nick to do, but I do know that there are several of those trainings that are offered online that you can also do. Just do a Google search on online certification programs within those. And I'll let Nick answer the question about compliance.
Under the state guidelines and the commission's under the state guidance and requirements under the normal law, the tips is a requirement. We are not going to go out and specifically look at this, but if it pops up during a regular inspection, it will be noted, and the applicable time to receive the certification will be given.
Let me just remind everyone, we do not have the ability to waive those things. There's a liability issue. But this is important information for us to hear. If there's something that in its face doesn't work well, we don't have the ability to fix it and work with you. We need to know. We can advocate to the state agency. I would just say, do not ignore that, because if it's a certain health and safety, we will be out there checking, not heavy-handed. At least get the process going so we know where you're at. Okay, but if there are other things like this that we should know of, this is important myself, and as we go back, or Nick or Doug and others, as they go back to the different state agencies, or myself with the other municipal leaders to make sure that they consider these things, please do not ignore that responsibility. If it's virtual, you have to do it, get it going on all these things, and I can probably surmise some of the things we're thinking about. Fair question. Our answer here is going to be pretty black and white, that if it's required, it's required.
And then just to note, the person who asked the question said that they were told that the online training would not comply by state standards. So I think maybe for this individual, if you want to follow up, if you have questions,
it would be helpful across whether it's retail, restaurant, whatever it is, whatever those certifications are. If we can get some of that feedback from you all, rather than me, we can check into that. That's helpful. Again, we're not going to be heavy-handed. Just communicate with us and say, listen, I'm having a hard time here, and I'm not going to come down and shut you down for that unless there's a clear health and safety to yourself and your workers. But I understand this seems to be like a continuum of training and certification for many things, much like we have to do here in City Hall. We do not have the unilateral ability to just waive that. So it sounds to me, if we can get more of that feedback from you all, we can think about how to approach the state, and maybe even just how can we support that training for you all via the Economic Development Office. So if we could get that, we could probably put some resources and coordination behind it as well.
Thank you. So Keith Schubert, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. Rachel, I'm having trouble unmuting him. Could you help me with that? Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, no, I can't hear you.
Right. Oh, yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right. I had to
Please share your question.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry. About the alcohol served with food thing. If you have as I understand it, if you have an all alcohol license, you have to have a full menu available, but you don't necessarily have to have food served with the alcohol, like on each ticket. Is that correct?
Okay. Commissioner Lynch or Lori, do you want to answer that question? Thanks for your question, Keith. Let's see. Am I frozen? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So if people, commissions, can you answer that question? Can you not hear? Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
Hi, it's Commissioner Lynch. I'm sorry. Sorry, having a little trouble with unmuting. So the question is, I understand it, if you are seated in the temporary outdoor patio area, food must be made available when you go out there and you order alcohol. So if you have a nuance with that, I'm not quite understanding the question.
Well, I think it's, so Joe, if I'm sitting at that patio and I only want a cocktail, can they just serve me the cocktail, or do I have to order food with it?
You must order food.
Okay.
Full menu versus appetizers, that's the nuance. If you want to contact Lori, she can send you a copy of the rules and rights.
Okay. So then just to clarify, you have to have a menu available, and the customer cannot order just an alcoholic beverage. They must also order food on their ticket.
That is correct, Kristen.
Okay. All right, thanks. Keith, I see that your hand is still up. Do you have a follow-up question to that? I think you might still be muted. If you have a follow-up question.
Yeah. It's I'm not only patio outdoors, but indoor, like just regular non-COVID times indoor.
Yes, I would refer you, I'm sorry, it's Commissioner Lynch again. I'd refer you back to pre-COVID, what your license said you could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which is we can serve a drink without food, as
Correct.
I understand it. I just wanted to clarify that the food is only you have to include food for the outdoor seating.
That is correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. And from what I can tell, we've answered all the live questions, and we've answered all the questions in the question box. So final call, are there any other questions that people want to have answered? I see that Steve Mackey has his hand raised. Can you help me unmute him, Rachel?
Kristen, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you. This is it's been a long time. This is a great moment. You are all most appreciated, despite what you might hear. I want to say thank you very much. It's great to see each of you and hear others. I hope all of you and yours are well and happy, and that you can, whatever we've been through, that you feel a great sense of achievement for the community going forward. We're looking forward to the administration, the mayor leading the way for Somerville. Thank you.
Thank you for the. And I'll wait just about 30 minutes to see if any more questions pop up, and then we will.
Kristen, we can't hear you.
And his rate.
Mayor, you're now unfrozen as well. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm sorry, the internet is having a problem. But we'll take Jessica's question as the last one.
Hello, thank you very much, Mayor, and everybody for hosting another town hall and for all of your supports throughout the last year. I know the business community is very excited to inch closer back to a sense of normalcy here. As pandemic restrictions are rolling back, we know that recovery is really ramping up. So I want to thank the city for continuing to invest in the recovery, whether that's through aids or waiving of fees as we go forward. I'm curious to know if the city is able to be supporting advocacy for sustaining cocktails to go and the 15% cap on deliveries, which is set to expire on June 15th with the lifting of the state of emergency. We know these are really critical supports for our local businesses, and I'm curious to know what kind of insights, guidance, or direction you can offer us.
Well, personally, I'm 110% in support. I have not heard from the Mass Restaurant Association, I can tell you that. I hope they're going to be advocates in this. I chair the Metropolitan Mayor's Coalition, which are the 15 communities in the core of Boston, or the metro area, and we developed a larger alignment of coalition with the North Shore across the Commonwealth since the beginning of COVID. A lot of these things are in our mindset. So if you're working, if you're members of that association or the Retailers Association, there are other things like that which I'd submit should be permanent, like utilizing the public realm for outdoor dining and serving of alcohol. It'd be good if they start keying us in. I will bring that message, as I have been, back to the larger coalition. I've already had conversations with the Lieutenant Governor, members of the Baker administration about moving towards making this permanent, as well as our state delegations that's advocating. So the more you can engage our state delegation, your organizations that represent you, and I'll bring that on the local level, we will work together to push that. So that's where that feedback's important to all of us. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the best way to do it right now. We're all on board. There's not a lot of convincing yet.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us and being with us on this crazy journey that last year and a quarter has been. It has been a journey. So I'm going to hand it back to the mayor to close the meeting.
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks to all of you. Brother, if you have any other comments, suggestions, questions, you can reach out to my office directly, mayor@somervillema.gov, to anyone on the call. As was mentioned by Joe Lynch, and Nick Antonovica, and others, and Lori Batsky. Best way to do this, if you're not sure, just tell us what's going on. If you're running into some issues as well on certification, don't be afraid. We're not going to come down and shut the door like, okay, how do we help you? Again, we can put resources around any training. So it'd be great for all the Main Streets organizations and the chamber, whatever the industry is in whatever sector in this economy, we need to know that because we ramp it up. We can ramp that up locally and support you that way, save you some costs, make sure everyone's safe. Be informed, come back to us. We've come a long way. Let's be smart. Nobody's going to be here. We need to be smart moving forward. I do not want to even think about what it would look like if we had to go backwards anyway. Please. I look forward to calling us. I'd like to come and show what it's like to eat in an establishment when you're fully vaccinated. Count me in. I'll drag Joe Lynch. It's been a pleasure to be on a call where he is muted beyond his own discretion. It's very good. But we're happy to, we need to take pause on what we lost, much of it immeasurable, so much of it irreplaceable, especially the loss of life. But we want to work with you to heal our economy and help get our feet going again. And how about we can be ambassadors that you're going to work with you. We'll be touching back again to think about future, working with all of you about recovery and how to best do that. There's going to be an engaged and robust process about the ARPA funding coming and how to leverage that against other monies. So there's more to come. Come a long way. This is a positive day. Thank you so much for working with us. And we want to push you over the threshold in a good way. So, thank you. Have a good day. Appreciate the whole team.